We introduced our Moment in Court history feature in a previous program with the story of woman suffragist Susan B. Anthony's trial for voting. Today we bring you another trial from the past, this one for violating the Sedition Act of 1798. Here with that story is my colleague, Bob Fagan.
In 1798, our national government was hardly a decade old, but already there was sharp partisan conflict between the Federalists, men such as John Adams and Alexander Hamilton, who favored a strong central government, and the Democratic Republicans, as those who followed Thomas Jefferson were then known. They feared the new national government would usurp the authority of the states. The young federal judiciary became caught up in the dispute. In that year, Congress passed legislation known as the Alien and Sedition Acts. The Sedition Act made it a crime to speak or publish any false, scandalous, and malicious writing against the government, Congress, or the President. Sponsored by the Federalists, the laws were intended to strengthen the central government and suppress political opposition from the Republicans. Earlier in the year, one Republican member of Congress, 49-year-old Matthew Lyon from Vermont, had already gained notoriety when he attacked fellow Congressman Roger Griswold with a pair of fire tongs on the floor of the House of Representatives. Griswold, a Federalist, had responded to one of Lyon's tirades against President Adams by insulting Lyon, who then spit on Griswold. When Griswold retaliated by caning him, Lyon armed himself with the tongs. A period drawing of this fight became a popular item. A native of Ireland, Matthew Lyon had come to America as an indentured servant, but by hard work and thrift earned his freedom. He became wealthy from several mills and other enterprises. He even discovered that paper could be manufactured from wood pulp. Lyon also established his own newspaper, which he used to express his vehement anti-Federalist opinions. In one of his editorials in 1798, he criticized President John Adams for what he called an unbounded thirst for ridiculous pomp, foolish adulation, and selfish avarice. Matthew Lyon became the first person brought into court for violating the Sedition Act. The grand jury's indictment described Lyon as, in its words, a malicious and seditious person, and of a depraved mind, and of a wicked and diabolical disposition. The indictment charged that with intent and design to defame the United States and John Adams, President, and to excite against the government the hatred of the good people of the United States, Matthew Lyon did wickedly, knowingly, and maliciously write, print, utter, and publish a certain scandalous and seditious writing. Lyon was tried in the U.S. Circuit Court for the District of Vermont in Rutland. At that time, circuit courts had jurisdiction over most federal crimes and were the primary federal trial courts. But circuit courts had no judgeships of their own, and so the district judge and a Supreme Court justice presided over them. The flamboyant Lyon served as his own attorney and called as his only witness the presiding circuit justice, William Patterson. Lyon asked Patterson, who frequently dined with President Adams, to testify in defense of the claim that Adams was pompous. Lyon was convicted by the jury, which he claimed was packed against him, sentenced to 4 months in jail, and fined $1,000. Depending on whose formula one uses, that fine today would be somewhere between $11,000 and $15,000. Lyon became a political martyr and a hero to many. He easily won re-election to Congress in the fall, despite being unable to campaign because he was in prison. In 1801, Congress allowed the unpopular Alien and Sedition laws to expire. In that same year, Matthew Lyon moved to Kentucky and eventually served in Congress from that state. He continued to be a leader of the Jeffersonian Republicans. In 1840, Congress voted to exonerate Matthew Lyon posthumously for his conviction and returned his fine, plus interest, to his heirs. The Supreme Court never ruled directly on the Sedition Act of 1798. But in 1964, in the famous case of New York Times versus Sullivan, the court said, in the words of Justice William Brennan, "Although the Sedition Act was never tested in this court, the attack upon its validity has carried the day in the court of history."